Yeah, the monitors aren't on.
Someday it's like Groundhog Day sometimes.
There they are. Are we ready now?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to March 7th council meeting. Would you please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Hagan?
Here?
Councilmember Bellinger?
Here.
Councilmember Crumick?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Swift?
Here?
And Mayor Alves?
Here. All right, let's see here. We're going to roll on down here to consent calendar. These items are considered routine in nature and are acted upon by a single action unless requested by an individual council member or member of the public for special consideration. Any input, gentlemen?
On number 4?
On number 4?
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and pull item 4.
You pull 4, okay.
Yeah.
4 is being pulled by Councilman Hagan. I'll accept, before we do that, is there anyone in the audience has any information regarding this consent calendar? Would you like to pull anything? Yes, not? Well, how about anyone on the internet or the phones? And it doesn't like that or there either this evening, so we're going to take a motion for the balance on this agenda.
I move that we move to accept the consent calendar with the exception of item number 4.
Okay, I'll have a motion. No, have a second?
I have a second on that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Councilman Hagan, please.
I was just curious on that waiver thing you had sent out earlier. Basically, the balance that's there, can that be used at all for the sidewalks that the lady had talked about last meeting?
That is a good question. I have John Ando on the line, and he's been doing our transportation for a long time, and he knows specifics on whether or not that can be used for sidewalk. John, can you hear us on the line to be able to answer Councilmember Hagan's question on item 4? Having trouble here. I can look into that for you and find out.
Okay.
This TDA claim is something that we do every few months. We file them every few months to get reimbursed for payment, but I can definitely look into it and find out and let you know.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So we'll
What
look.
was your question again, please?
Oh, some of the funds that come in from that claim, can it be, it says that part of it has to be used for transit, but some of it can be used for roads and maintenance type stuff.
Yeah, I believe we're restricted on that. I think
So I wasn't sure.
used to be
I
able
want
do
to
that.
say
Sidewalks.
streets and roads only, but I don't want to say that and be incorrect. So I would rather find out from John directly.
Okay, so you want to table this, or do you want, can we vote on it, or?
Well, I have a question too on it, so.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the email right now from John. So I read through it. I was trying to disseminate it, understand it. Just quickly, I guess, I don't know if we have John on the phone, but you could probably answer this. It seems like we didn't meet a certain need, and therefore what is happening to those LTF funds?
Because I think John just came on.
Is it said?
Go ahead.
He's muted for some reason.
Yeah.
He has to unmute.
So I can speak a little bit to this. First of all, these funds, they are identified to specific projects, so you can't kind of move them around without they have to meet guidelines, and then you have to get a certain pre-approval. They do carry forward for a certain period of time, and I'm not familiar with all of the things on this claim, but they are generally used, okay, within the program. As far as the local transportation funds, those are used for streets. So those funds can be combined, but are separate here at this city, and we use those for streets.
I was just going to mention that our past history since I've been here has always been for streets, no sidewalk improvements. We've
So we
always
can't-
supplemented with other funding, but I will double check.
Okay, just in case it can be stretched from the streets to the sidewalk.
Yeah,
That
we
might
can
help
definitely
some of the
double-check.
things that she had a concern with, that's all.
And it seems like out of S.J. Cog for San Joaquin, in this letter, it says the only cities that are impacted are Escalon and Ripon. It also says that the city is requesting consideration to waive the 25% LTF retention for public transit. Does that mean we are essentially not asking for 25% of those LTF funds?
No, it means that we're going to use those for streets. So we're still going to have the
Okay.
funds, we're just not going to use them for transportation.
Because the need is not there.
Right.
So there's not enough people using E-Trans, we still have the money, so we're going to put it to better use, meaning streets or
Streets.
sidewalks, or streets.
Streets, yeah.
Okay,
And we've met all of our unmet transit.
we've met the thing.
Yeah, we meet everything, and so we're requesting
Okay,
to use it towards LTF.
to other things, okay.
Yeah.
I think that's good. Yeah, I was trying to understand it, and I think I do now, so thank you.
So we're in a position right now where we want to decide if we want to claim this $326,000, correct? That's where we're at?
Yes, this is a quarterly EA claim that we file quarterly for reimbursement through SJ-COG.
Okay, well,
So do we want to go ahead and push this through? Because whether it's for sidewalks or not, we want to make this happen.
Yeah.
And push this
Correct.
through for the letter to go
Correct.
through at this point, so.
Yeah, it seems like this is money that we could claim for street improvements in town because we've met our, or we've met our unmet transit needs. It seems like we should move this forward so we can utilize those funds.
Starts with a motion. Do I have a
yep.
motion?
Yeah, I move to accept item number 4.
Seconds?
We have a motion and a second. We don't have to go out here again, do we? No. Okay.
Mayor
We have
Alves,
a
you-
motion and a second.
Mayor Alves, I'm going to modify my motion and
Go
say,
ahead.
we move to accept item number 4 on the consent calendar.
Very good. We have the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Very good. We'll move down to staff communication staff.
Anybody have anything on, I could go last? Or let's have Justin go since he's the first on the line there. Justin, can you hear us to give staff communications?
The only thing I have tonight was just updating that, actually meeting with the bathroom people tomorrow, and if everything keeps going smooth, the bathroom will be getting plumbed in and dropped in next week. So hopefully by next council meeting, I can report back on how nice the bathroom is and how well it's going. So
Nice.
other than that, that's it for Public Works.
All right.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Justin. Justin?
Yes, sir.
We,
Yes.
in the past, have talked about swings on Sanchez. Where are we at with that?
We're at swings. Well, I've got some prices to put in for swings. I've got to bring it to budget time, and for your guys' approval, and then we'll start being able to put some swings in certain parks. We have certain things and improvements we're going to have to make because we can't put them on some of the swings we have now. We have to put the apparatuses out in safer areas, which will have to kind of extend some of our playgrounds. But I will be bringing that all to you guys into a package, and we can kind of pick through on where and what we would want, and we'll go from there.
I'm getting a lot of concern regarding Sanchez, the slide. I guess there's a lot of activity there that's not acceptable, and some of the people have called me and asked me to look into it. So I'm not sure what they're talking about.
Okay.
Can you take a look at it and see if you can see anything over there?
Yeah, you said Sanchez Park, correct?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, yes, I'll take a look at it and report back.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
No problem.
John Ando, do you have any comments you'd like to provide on anything?
Move on.
He's still muted. Oh,
He was unmuted and then he
Was?
must just be having trouble.
Yep.
Do you have anything, Chief? Do you have anything, Claire? Okay. The only update I have at this time is the update on the Irwin Village project. We'll let you know that they had formally withdrew their housing application or project application. I sent you a copy of that letter. I have a copy of it if you guys need a paper copy. And so that will no longer be moving forward. And because that project is no longer moving forward, the Planning Commission meeting does not have any agendas or items for the agenda, so we'll be canceling the meeting of March 15th.
Perfect. Okay.
Dominique, if I may ask, what's the situation with opening day? Is there going to be an opening day ceremony this year?
So for opening day, I believe it's the 12th or 13th, whichever day
This
that lands
weekend.
on the Saturday, this weekend,
Yeah,
this Saturday. And at the time, with the COVID restrictions and the number of players we had over 1,000 people that would be trying to squeeze in that area. And so at that time, when we decided not to move forward with it, we were gonna have to impose certain restrictions and such that we just don't have the ability to do. And so we went ahead and decided this one last year, we'll go ahead and not have the opening day, the ceremony, and then move on with it for next year.
Okay? Staff?
That's it.
That's it? Okay, we're gonna move down to matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time of the item's call. The public may also address the city council on the item not on the agenda that is within the authority of the city council. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. The determination of whether an item is within the authority of the city council is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. And at this time, I would open it up for anyone who has any comments. Come to the podium, please give us your name. You have 5 minutes, unless it's real interesting.
Cool. Okay. Hi, I'm Sherry Hill. Good evening. First of all, it came to my attention that my comments last time melded together, and I had 2 separate issues and 2 separate questions. And so I've already talked to Dominique and asked, sorry that it got combined and that they meshed together. I have 2 separate questions, so I'm going to re-bring those issues up. First, when I asked about city manager position, it had nothing to do with Irwin, nothing at all to do with Irwin. It had everything to do with, I don't understand the process and procedure of looking for a city manager. So is there an application process? I'd like to know that, I don't know. And in regards to another comment that was made about, you not being able to ask questions, you're my city representatives, we voted you in. We're our council, this is where we come and have communication. This is where we ask questions and we give questions. So I think sometimes you can answer our questions. I know you might not agree with me, but I think if you can answer a question, then maybe you can say, I don't have an answer for you right now, maybe next meeting I can give you an answer.
Fair.
Okay?
Yep, absolutely.
But this is where we come to ask you what you're doing for us.
Right.
So there needs to be questions and answers.
Sure.
Okay. So again, my thing with city manager has nothing to do with who is there right now.
We understand, the process is what you're interested in.
Yes.
Well, as far as I know, and maybe the attorney here can help us out a little bit, but I believe it's just, we hire a new city manager, we do have a process where we take applications, or we promote from within. Now, we've done that multiple times. In fact, the last one we had was, and I'm not sure if the one before that or not, but anyway, that's generally what we've been doing. It seems to work pretty well for us, but if there's an applicant out there that's just dying to put an application in, I mean, we could look at it.
You wouldn't know if you don't open it up.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, no, I get it.
Okay.
It's something we can look at.
Okay. My next thing, then I will go back to Irwin. I'm so glad that it was been pulled, but my concern is still there. What I would ask, please take this on its face value. Don't try to, say, well, was she twisting things?
Sure.
I would like to know, or maybe we should find out, where did it come into the door? Where did how come it got so far before you knew or before we knew? And if we can hindsight is a wonderful thing. So now hindsight, take this as a learning thing for our city, for our community. Go back and look at how it got here, where it first entered in, and what can we do next time to say, okay, if you hear this, you come tell the city council or bring it to the manager's, attention and let us know so that it doesn't get this far.
I totally agree. I think this evening we'll be discussing that further along the agenda here. I think there'll be some council communications that will address a lot of that.
Wonderful.
I appreciate you bringing it up.
Okay. Then my last thing, and then I'm under my 5 minutes, so I must.
You're
keep going.
good, keep going.
I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to our police. I want to say thank you to our directors. I want to say thank you to those who, city and attorney. And I want to say thank you to all of you. I know 2 of you have young families. That's a commitment. That's a sacrifice. Your children are making a sacrifice. Your wives are making a sacrifice. All of you. So you don't hear it enough. You hear our complaints. You hear us when we have concerns. And I was speaking with our city attorney earlier. You know, when we're young, our families, we appoint you, we vote you in, and then we expect you to do what we want you to do without hearing from us, and we expect that you will, you know, hold our values. Because we're busy raising our families and putting dinner on the table and fridge and all of those things. And then we get to my age, a little further along down the road where we can now participate. So you don't hear it enough, so thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. The only thing I will say, Sherry, is that the only thing is a lot of people don't have all the information before they make a comment. And that's the only criticism I would have. Just learn more about what you're going to say before you say it. Not you personally, but in general.
Agreed.
All right, thank you. Go ahead. Name, please.
My name is Andy Dugo. I know this is public comment session, and I know you don't have to respond to anything. It's my opinion. I know you don't have to respond from my time on a couple other boards, but I felt I had to come here and then or just explain my concerns. I attended a planning commission meeting last month, and it was a full house. It was packed, and the board said this is the first time. Usually there's nobody here, so they said it was nice to see. The people with the proposal made a real nice proposal, but the thing is, they didn't exactly tell the truth. They just omitted a lot of things in their application. One thing that really concerned me, and the commission said, they notified people within 300 feet of this project. Well, I live a few miles away, or half a mile away from that, and I would feel that might be the law, but that's not Escalon. You know, I think that there should be a better notification process. We have a local paper. We have other ways to get information out. I was kind of blindsided by it. I was called by a friend when I'm talking about the project over on Irwin, and they just didn't tell the whole story. A Section 8 housing project, as it was advertised as community housing for senior citizens of Escalon. Well, that's not true. It would have been run by the county. Probably not many people from Escalon would have been there. Really concerned me, and I did a little bit of checking in on it, and it was brought up tonight that it was withdrawn, but it was withdrawn not by action from here or from the planning commission. It was withdrawn from them because there was pushback from the community, which was great. I think it was great, but I was concerned that how did this thing get that far? The planning commission said in their meeting that it was basically kicking the can down the road, that it had been approved, and that they were only looking at the billing aspect of it. It went so far as the police department had some safety concerns, the fire department had some safety concerns. As long as they were addressed, the project was fine. I'm thinking, how did it get that far? I personally have experienced these projects. I was born and raised over on Baker Street. When the Baker Street apartments went in, it was promised there was going to be a through road going through. Well, that never happened. There's not even a cul-de-sac at the end of that thing. My time with the fire department, we knew if that place caught on fire, it was going to be a death trap. So I'm just really concerned. The people that were off of California Street were very concerned about this project going through. Thank gosh it didn't go through. I appreciate the job you do. I would just wish that there was some way we could be notified when you're going to change the whole dynamics of the town. Of that dynamic, I just think it'd be nice if we were notified. This isn't Stockton, it isn't Manteca. And I stated that night when I talked, you want Section 8 housing? Put it by the bypass over in Manteca. Put it in Stockton. Escalon doesn't need Section 8 housing. We do need senior citizen housing. I would love to see a project to go that way. It would be absolutely fantastic. The people that are living in the old Paddock Manor, their rents have skyrocketed, feel bad for them. I'd love to see there's some way I could help a project like get off the ground. I'd love to help, but I didn't think this was the way, and I'd love to see a better notification process. I commend you guys for the job you do. I know it's thankless, and she said you don't get thanked enough, and you only hear the bad things. There's so many good things that happen in this town, but thank you for the job you do, but I'm glad this thing got kicked out, but it was by them. So anyway, Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if Colin is still online. I don't know if he's still online or not.
Justin?
Justin. Collins is last.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, he is.
This is Betty Bennett again, Justin. I see that Tuesday you must have had a meeting with the people over on Brennan about the sprinklers.
Yes.
I see a few new sprinklers. Are they going to be replacing more?
They are. There are some sprinklers that are going to be getting replaced and some that are going to be getting removed.
Okay. Because I took a picture down on, in Ripon, which you probably, I don't know if you could see, but this is Ripon. And this is our little Escalon, what has happened. And our fees for Bella Terra Estates have gone up $187 a home this year. So I expect that to be taken care of, so we don't look like we're dying on the vine, which we're dying on the vine out there. So I appreciate you meeting with them, and I appreciate that you're following up and getting those sprinklers fixed, because now they're tearing plants out of the medium now. And for their information and everybody's, if they don't get water, your plants die.
Thank you.
Pure and simple.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ann Shaddix, and I just want to comment on the senior housing project. I think the communication lacked so much. You had a planning commission. You had lots of people scheduled or that came in to talk against the project, but the seniors were not made aware of it until after the fact. So our voice was not heard until after that planning commission. So I'm asking again that we look at ways to improve communication when we're doing something. Make no mistake, we're coming back with another plan for senior housing. I think the hard part, the really hard part for all of us, for the seniors and many people I heard from, and that's how the seniors were referred to during the many emotional discussions. At one point, I was embarrassed to be a senior. I hope when we come back again that the issue will not be about seniors, but it will be about providing housing. You have now turned down 2 opportunities for senior housing. I think it's time that all of us pull together for the right reason and bring about some senior housing into Escalon.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Anyone else out there would like to speak this evening? Going, and gone. Okay. That moves us here. Public hearing. Administrative matters, consideration resolution number.
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
Yeah, it's
Oh, the
7.
first one, there we go, sorry about that. Introduction and waive the first reading of ordinance number 30, amended chapter 8.08 of Escalon Municipal Code relating to the solid waste collection and disposal. Staff.
Thank you, Mayor. This is another piece of the puzzle in regards to Senate Bill 1383. This Senate bill is to adopt regulations to reduce organic waste statewide by 50% from its 2014 baseline level by 2020 and 75% by 2025. SB 1383 also requires the regulations to recover for human consumption at least 20% of edible food that is currently thrown away. The purpose of SB 1383 is to reduce methane and greenhouse gas emissions resulting from landfill organic waste and the impact on climate change. The regulations by CalRecycle implement SB 1383 were finalized in late 2020 and took effect January 1st, 2022. These regulations also require the city adopt and enforce an ordinance to implement the SB 1383 regulations. So regarding SB 619, this was created a mechanism called a notification of intent to comply, through which the local jurisdiction may secure administrative civil penalty relief from any continuing violations of the SB 1383 regulations for the 2022 calendar year, including the failure to timely adopt an SB 1383 ordinance. If you recall, at our last meeting on February 22nd, the City Council adopted a resolution adopting a notification of intent to comply to address the delayed adoption of the 1383 ordinance. Regarding organic waste collection requirements, this ordinance will require all residents and businesses to subscribe to organic waste collection services. In late 2021, the city negotiated a new franchise agreement with the city's waste hauler Jilton and adopted new garbage rates. Currently, for residential customers, Jilton collects trash and recyclables in a mixed waste container. Jilton collects organic waste in a gray or green container, and any new organic waste containers will be issued in green. For commercial customers, Jilton offers containers for trash, recyclables, and organic waste upon request, as commercial customers are allowed to self-haul materials to the appropriate solid waste facilities. Jilton intends to construct a high diversion organic waste processing facility, materials recovery facility to benefit jurisdictions regionally. Once that facility is constructed, diversion of organic waste and recyclable materials from the landfill will increase. Until the facility is constructed and operational, Jilton must continue to offer separate containers for trash, recyclables, and organic waste. When the facility opens, commercial customers will be able to shift to a single mixed waste container in accordance with SB 1383 regulations, because Jilton will be able to recover recyclable materials and organic waste from a single stream of waste. The ordinance also requires education and outreach to individuals and businesses who generate waste on how they can properly sort materials for collection, the implementation of an edible food recovery program, inspections to ensure compliance with the regulations, and enforcement for non-compliance with the SB 1383 regulations. For education and outreach, businesses and multifamily buildings must acquire and supply an adequate number of labeled color-specific containers for employees, contractors, tenants, and customers, and educate employees and tenants about proper sorting. The education and outreach period is from January 1st through 2022 through December 31st, 2023, and educational materials must be provided to generators who do not comply with the requirements. Regarding edible food recovery program, the city must develop and implement an edible food recovery program that recovers edible food from commercial edible food generators for human consumption. Commercial edible food generators must enter into written agreements for food recovery organizations and services, and the entities must keep specified records. Inspection and enforcement. The city must inspect and enforce the requirements in the ordinance. The penalties for violations are consistent with the city's penalties for other ordinance violations. The city must provide educational materials, issue notices of violation, and issue administrative citations for violations of the ordinance as specified. The focus will be on education and outreach in 2022 and 2023. Penalties for noncompliance will be imposed after January 1st, 2024. Other requirements of SB 1383 is that the city adopt enforceable requirements to comply with specified provisions of the California Green Building Standards Codes, also known as Cal Green, and the state model water efficient landscape ordinance, unless they already have such enforceable mechanism in place. The city has already adopted the 2019 Cal Green, and section 17.44020 of the Escalon Municipal Code provides that, quote, landscaping shall be consistent with Escalon and the state of California's water efficient landscape and landscaping guidelines, unquote. The city must procure recycled content paper in accordance with existing state laws and procure recovered organic waste products such as compost, mulch, electricity generated from biomass conversion, and renewable natural gas as levels prescribed by the state annually. The fiscal impact Customers will pay for recent changes to the solid waste collection services in accordance with the rate schedule that was adopted by the City Council in late 2021. And so the attachments we've added is the ordinance that is amending Chapter 808 of the Escalon Municipal Code. And then we also included a redlined version. And as you can see, there's a lot of red line. And so it was basically a rewrite of Section 808 to meet the state's regulations in regards to 1383.
Dominic, there's one question I have for you in this. I can't find it, and I've looked for it, is there was a section in here that addressed the timetable and what the penalties, if any, were allowed. Where's that at?
So for violations, that would actually be, typically it would be in a separate section. We fall under a different section of the code if it's regarding administrative citation.
Violation and penalties under, I see that, it says unlawful.
Oh, last section, 808-240, and I think it just ends up pushing you right back to,
What I wasn't referring to the city, I was referring to the contractor. If we talked briefly about this last time, if they don't meet their deadline, what becomes of that?
okay, so that's in accordance with their contract. And so we talked about that, and I think Claire and Mark had, if Jilton was not able to
If you were to default.
complete their default on completing their high diversion facility, because they gave us 2 years.
We would have to prove that they did it intentionally, and that's what the conversation was. So if it was done intentionally, then I believe there is penalties. I believe if he can substantiate his delays, then I don't think there's any penalty. I think what we came to. The other thing at the time was the money we've collected was it questioned whether or not he should be able to have that money or should the money be returned. That's what I wanted to understand before we go any further was, is that the way it is right now? That's what we've agreed upon, is that if he's delayed and his delay is due to something out of his control, then there was no problem with that, basically. I think we kind of waived on that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's the short version of it.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get into all night, but the other end of it was, and the money, was going to stay in the kitty no matter what, but if there's a problem for performance that is in his control, then that's another issue altogether.
Right, and the remedy for that is the fees then go back.
Right.
The public's fees get reduced to their
Correct. Yeah, I thought that's what it was.
pre-adoption.
I just want to clear that up. That's fine. That's what I need to hear.
And I just want to make sure for everybody else, we're talking about two separate things.
I understand that.
Because what's
part of
before,
this.
right, what's before us right now, we're actually the municipal code that's applicable to the public. So this is the rules that the public has to live by in terms of their recycling and their food waste and so forth. What the mayor was just talking about was the rules that the contractor, our waste hauler, has to abide by, and that's based on our contract.
And I just wanted to get it out.
And in part on the regulations, because the contract incorporates the regulations. But what we've got before us is separate than that, just
Correct.
for everybody else's sake.
All right, I just had a
Thank you.
question for that.
And it's my understanding that a lot of these provisions in here, inspection and enforcement, the city must inspect, the city must provide. I think a lot of these things, I believe Jilton is going to be handling it.
Assisting us with.
Yeah, assisting,
Yeah, and
yeah.
there's some areas that we'll have to handle, that we'll handle on our own, and it's more, and we've negotiated with them with that on what is more appropriate for us to handle and what is more appropriate for them.
I do know they're already looking at a booth for Park Beat this year, an informational booth to
Yes.
Good idea.
send, so.
Yes,
That'd be very good.
we're definitely gonna do the information outreach and get that moving forward.
Okay, so we open this up to the public hearing. Here's your opportunity to comment on what we're discussing right now. If you have any questions, please come to the podium and have your name and we'll discuss it. Okay, well, we're gonna not close the public hearing, but we're gonna go to the phone lines and computer. Are there anyone on either of those media forms that is interested in commenting? Okay, we haven't got much. We'll bring it back to the council. Council, any discussion?
No changes for me.
How about down here? Anybody? Okay, then, if there's no discussion, I'll accept the motion.
Ready to move on staff's recommendation?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 5. All right,
And
moving down.
I just wanted to remind you that this is the introduction and waiving of the first reading, and so this item will come back on the next agenda as a second reading and adoption. And typically, second reading and adoptions will end on consent, so it will be on the consent calendar. And then once that, if that is not pulled and is approved, the ordinance will go into effect in 30 days.
Right, then it becomes law.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll get it next time to review again, and then after that, it'll be on the consent, third time will be the consent calendar.
Correct.
And then after the consent calendar, 30 days, it's now law.
Well, it's already state law, but it technically will take 30 days to go into effect, but it will already be in effect statewide.
Okay, very good. Administrative matters. Consider resolution number 2022 opposing initiative 21-0042A1, known as the Taxpayers, as the Taxpayers Protection and Government Accountability Act. Continued from February 22nd meeting. Okay, staff.
So this item, as the mayor indicated, was continued from the last meeting. Since then, the League of California Cities actually had sent out an article about this item, and so I did include that article as an additional attachment to this item. And that article was in the Los Angeles Times dated March 2nd. And it basically gives the information and background on this item. This ballot measure promises help for taxpayers, but is really a handout to real estate developers. And then the mayor had come by and indicated that he had found another article that was written by the president, I believe, president of the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. And that article was an opinion article titled "The Fight to Limit Taxation Continues." And so I've included both of these articles for your reading. And if you have any additional questions, Mark or I or Claire
I have a few
provide some
things.
answers for you.
So I've done quite a bit of research on this topic, the initiative known as the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act. Now, all those words sound very good to me. I really like all of those words, and so I wanted to look into this thoroughly. I am not opposed to this. I am not opposed to this initiative, so I'm in favor of this initiative, and I want to lay out why for the community and for my fellow council members. First of all, we've got two things mixed up here. The League of California Cities did write that article, an opinion piece in the LA Times. I read it, and if you read it, you got to look at the source. The League of California Cities is advocating for cities to be able to, retain their ability to tax people and do what they want. That's all well and fine. What this initiative is not designed for that. This initiative is not designed to increase the authority of local communities or local cities or any city or any government agency. And here's another thing, on the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association, which they're big proponents of Proposition 13, which limits your property tax to 1%. They're a taxpayer advocate. This is directly from their website. That is why the Howard Taxpayer Association put Proposition 218 on the ballot in 1996. It gave the people the right to vote on all local taxes and require taxpayers or ratepayers' approval of assessments and property-related fees. Skipping down, so it is with the government avoiding, okay, that's why the state business associations and the Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association are supporting the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act initiative to close some new loopholes recent court rulings have opened in Props 13 and 218. That's a lot of information, but I like the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. I think they do good work in looking out for making sure taxes don't get out of control. That's their job. They're a watchdog. They support this initiative. I've done other research as well, and I've read the LA Times, but I believe what this initiative is what it states. And it's one of those confusing ones because one person on one side of the aisle say, this is very simple. It's taxpayer protection and government accountability. And then on the other side, they go, well, it's very confusing. So you have to figure it out for yourself. You have to use your own intellect. I believe this initiative will limit even this body, this city's ability to tax the community more. And I'm in favor of that. I'm a small government, little government, low taxation kind of guy. So I don't believe this has to do with local control. I really believe that this is a good initiative. Another thing that you can tell it's a good initiative is they blame big corporations for everything, and they blame developers. Big corporations are exactly that. They're big business, and they provide lots and lots of jobs. So I don't demonize big corporations. You know, that's what this article in LA Times does. I don't demonize big developers because they build all the homes that we live in. So those are two red flags to me. And with that, I'll relinquish my time, but I am not opposed to this initiative. I am in favor of the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act.
Okay, other council members?
Yeah, I'm going to muddy the water now. Looking into the research, and I think, thank you for those articles. I read those articles after it dawned on me, oh wait, I've already read the things on the internet myself, so. But anyway, yeah, you did have one pro LA Times was against it, and I believe, right, Howard Jarvis, John Copal, his article was against it. And so you start looking at it like this, and then I found a third source, and basically this is just from the Legislative Analyst's Office. It does require voter approval for state taxes, which is a good thing. The measure increases the vote requirements for increased state taxes. Specifically, the measure requires that legislatively proposed tax increases receive approval by 2/3 of each house and a majority vote of the statewide electorate. Now, I like that. That sounds good. That sounds good. Okay, voters will still be able to increase taxes by majority vote of the electorate without legislative action, however. Any state tax approved between January 1st, 2022 and the effective date of this measure will be nullified unless it fulfills the requirements of the measure. So that sounds good. Okay, that sounds fantastic. Requirements for approving local taxes. Okay, now you put on your council member hat and you're supposed to be a steward of the community and make sure that the community has the services that it needs. Local taxes. Whether sought by the local governing body or the electorate, the measure establishes the same approval requirements for increasing local special taxes. Remember, that's 2/3 and a majority. Any local tax approved between January 1st, 2022 and the effective date of the measure will be nullified. So I see us up here in a different situation than everybody out there, because I don't think there's anybody in the room that is in love with higher taxes, okay? Neither are us. But as we go with our governing duties, does this put a hand behind our back or not? I don't know.
Well, you're saying, it says,
I'm
we
just
need
throwing it out.
we need a supermajority essentially to raise new taxes, 2/3 instead of a majority on certain items. I'm in favor of that. I think a
Yeah.
supermajority shows an overwhelming support for a new tax in the community,
Right.
which is what I would like to see before I raise somebody's rates. Another thing is, it requires more control. It limits the city's ability to raise things like fees, as opposed to saying, you can't even raise a fee unless it goes before the community. And I think it promotes transparency that, hey, if we want to raise these fees or this, whatever. And so I think it's good.
Right. And so that's where, and reading the tea leaves of this community and how it feels about tax increases of any sort. Ceres Council just came out and they opposing this initiative, Knowing how things work here in town, I don't even know if whatever we would want to do tax increase-wise, sales tax increase, anything like that would ever go. So maybe life's a little easier for us to make a decision to support the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act versus most other towns. So maybe it's easier for us to say, no, we actually want to support this.
Well, I support it because I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good initiative. I don't care what Ceres does. I think it's, here's the thing. You're going to talk to any city council and they're going to be like, they're going to err on the side of going, well, this gives us more control if we oppose this because this takes away some of our control. I'm willing to let some control go in favor of the taxpayer.
Yeah, all I want to do is frame the argument in the quandary that us five are in.
Right.
Because, okay, which depending on what hat you wear, in a conservative little town, you're going to go one way or the other. You know,
Yeah.
so,
This initiative, if it passes and it's, its supporters, I think it's unlikely, I think, that it will pass, but this is just an initiative, I think, but I'm in favor of making it harder to raise taxes and raise fees on people. I think that's a good thing.
so really, if we were actually for the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act, remember the question on the floor is, do we adopt the resolution that opposes it? If we are not opposed to it, then you probably don't have a motion or anything.
Correct.
That's the end of the story.
Maybe it could help with a little bit of a very real effect that this is going to have regarding this council. So one of the things is that's going to be voided is this council's vote regarding the fees regarding Chilton. What we've been dealing with for the last 6 months, more than 6 months, we've been dealing this for a while, but in terms of the actual fees, that was finally raised after a public hearing, and this council voted on it, it's going to be nullified, and now it's going to have to go out to the public to vote on whether their garbage rate should go up or not. And this council will somehow have to fund it if the citizens say no. So you couldn't go out and raise it. You're going to have to somehow cut a budget item from somewhere else versus just being able to have a public hearing and say, we have to do this. This is the cost of the service. And therefore, that's why these fees are going to go up, and we've made sure they're just enough that we needed to, and we got a good deal with Chilton, and so forth and so on. This is a very real effect that this will have, besides the greater aspect of whether it's a good idea for this body to be able to have local control over their taxes and fees and costs.
Let me just add that it's not just looking at the budget and finding another place to take money from. It's eliminating services. So it would make the elimination of service fairly easy, because once you can't afford to provide this service, it just goes away.
This is an initiative, what is that, where is it in the process right now? It's not on a ballot yet is it on the election or the vote? Where's this initiative at right now?
Good question. It was an initiative.
Is it just collecting signatures?
No,
enough?
it's beyond signatures. I think it's going on the ballot.
November ballot.
And then all of California votes on it?
Yes.
Essentially? So, again.
Because it's a statewide initiative.
Again, here's my thing. I think everything you just said was good. A lot of people look at the political game as a game of chess, and we have to know where and when to put our strong player. I'm a checkers guy, right? I like it nice and simple. And what you just said is, if this passes, it's going to create a problem, because we're going to have to go to the taxpayers and have them approve the fees instead of us just doing it. I don't look at that as a bad thing.
No, that's not the problem. It's when if it doesn't pass, you're still going to have to somehow either provide the service without the money for it that you've asked the citizens to pay for that service, or you're going to have to cut the service.
I understand that. I do. I fully understand that, yeah.
Okay.
So I have more questions to add to that, just to tack on. So our scheduled water rate increases every year that we have, is that in play here as well? Because it's a fee structure that goes up. It's not a tax, it's a fee for service provided. And going along the same lines as Chilton with a rate structure, at what point and level does that happen?
The other one was a 218 process, and it was a mandate. I think there's a difference there.
Well, this is changing that dynamic. That's why it's garnishing so much attention. But I think the short answer is I believe so, but I'd have to double check regarding water rates. But generally speaking, this is trying to say yes, any fees, whether it's a tax or a fee, has to have a supermajority to get passed. And which we know is fees are covering actual service, cost of service. So if you cannot raise the cost of service, but the cost of service is still going to go up no matter what happens with the vote, the city has to somehow either come up with it somehow else, but not be a tax or fee, or just cut the service. I don't know.
To be honest with you, Mark, there is a section on fees as well, and the same thing, any fee approved between January 1, 2022 and the effective date. I think even the 218 process, I think that was approved and completed in 2021, before, last year versus this year. The date that they're talking about is January 1, 2022. Those would be in question if this finally gets passed by the.
Right, and I believe we passed the Jilton, this council passed the Jilton one after January 1st.
You sure, or before? I thought we did before.
The fees were conditioned upon the contract being completed, and we didn't get the contract approved until January, so that's when the fees went into effect.
Oh, okay.
And that would be any future
They were conditioned on the approval of the contract.
contracts.
So basically, that, almost regardless of what we decide tonight, if this initiative passes,
That's right.
then,
It supersedes us.
Right.
All right, I'd like to say a little something here, if you guys don't mind. Okay, basically, the way I see this initiative put on by the Howard Jarvis Group is saying, in essence, it is trying to get government reined in so they can't fee you to death unless, well, the whole concept of Howard Jarvis is to keep taxes in line with what the people want. The question is what the people want. It doesn't make any sense. We have to weigh that. I'm not a big fan of government dominating our lives through taxes and any other source. But it's our decision tonight we're gonna have to make, and the attorneys brought up some interesting points, whether or not they could be substantiated or not. He's not positive. He has a good idea they might be that way. I would feel much more comfortable if he could prove it. But since we're here tonight to vote, I think we just need to vote. And is there any more discussion, gentlemen?
Yeah, I do have some more discussion. So the two big areas where we get tax dollars to fund this government to go in the general fund is property tax and sales tax. Those are the two things, the majority of which being property taxes.
Yeah.
That's not coming into play on this resolution. We are still going to, whether or not this passes, and I believe this is not retroactive, this is moving forward. So this thing passing, I don't quite understand how it would affect our staffing levels or funding certain positions. We're talking about if this passes, we'd have to cut. I don't understand that because our tax base is still going to be in place.
Yep.
Well, the third part that you're missing is the actual fees for services. So you mentioned the two main taxing funding mechanisms.
Sure.
But there's another income, which is fees.
Which I don't like, so.
Right, but those fees are associated with a particular service.
I
In other words,
understand
you're
that.
getting charged a fee for a service.
Sure.
Right? And that is impacted here as well. So if we want to provide, which we have to provide is garbage service to a certain level, as the state says we have to do, we charge fees for that service that the homeowners are getting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we can't get the income from the fees, but the service still has to be provided, we run a deficit.
I understand that, and I think at that point, you adopt all the great aspects of being a transparent government. You go to the people and say, guess what? We voted this thing down. We are going to have to cut or find a way, and you go to them and you get the taxpayers to approve what you're doing, rather than us five up here. If we're running a deficit and we need it, let's go to the people paying it.
Well, here's what I'm wondering. If enough people had enough of what's going on with these mandates, maybe that's a message that needs to be sent. Because mandates are unfair, especially in communities like Escalon. We're a small community. We get the same mandate everybody else gets. So unless the state of California wants to learn to modify mandates based on population and other aspects of the communities they're in, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the mandates. I know there's a jeopardy here. I know it's a problem, and it's going to have to be worked out. But I think there has to be a line drawn in the sand sooner or later. And I think that's where we're at right now. And it's up to this council to make that decision. They can do as they choose by a vote, which, by the way, can we have now?
I'd like to say something first.
Sure.
So as a community, they've elected all of us to represent their thoughts and ideas on all these topics. Some things we can control, some we can't. I don't believe that we do anything but be fiscally responsible, try and provide services at the lowest cost possible. I don't think we have abused as a council ever up here without, this is a mandate, we have to do it. I accept that mandates are not popular, we don't want to do that, but I also don't want to risk the fiscal solvency of this community by standing on a soapbox saying, we don't like mandates, we're just going to see how it is, and then we'll figure it out later. I'm more conservative in that nature, and I don't want to risk that. I don't think with any of these fees that we have gone out of our way to make money on the backs of our citizens. So I concern myself with putting ourselves in a position where a rate increase to take care of something we have to do is a 2/3 vote, when I think we take care of voting up here to represent our community as it is. And so I think honestly that this would handcuff us.
Well, that's where you get into that dilemma where you got two different sides of it, you know. I mean, hey, I'd love to be able to, you know, do we trust the state and it's spending its money wisely? Not really, okay. But, you know, all politics are ultimately, I think Tip O'Neill said, the old politics are local. And this is where the voters have got more of a say. And yeah, I struggle with this too. Do I really want to tie one hand behind our back here, you know, locally here to, just to go neater to the state? You know, I mean, I wish this thing was in two different initiatives instead of one big umbrella initiative, because you can see what happens here. Okay, to try to solve one problem, you're going to capture every little town in the same darn dilemma, and you're going to make life a lot harder for them. They got a lot smaller margin of error than the state does. So,
Margin of error is slim.
Okay.
Why was this put on the agenda? Who, did the League of California Cities send this to us, or was this requested to be on there?
Yeah, the
They
request.
do. They send an email out to all of the cities asking for resolutions in opposition of this item, because that's the position that they've taken on behalf of the cities.
Okay, well,
How
I
many
guess,
cities are currently on that list?
in closing,
I'm not sure how many of them, I'm not aware of anybody not adopting the resolution.
I think Councilman Bellinger said it best. He said, you know, if we don't oppose this, it could handcuff us. And I agree with that. I'm not worried about handcuffing us. I'm worried about handcuffing the taxpayers. And in this particular initiative, I believe this is looking out for government, not those being governed.
Okay,
Public comment, Mr. Mayor?
sure, go ahead.
Well, I was suggesting that you open up to public comment before there was any motions made.
Thank God. Okay. Anyone out there would like to comment on the current item we're discussing this evening, please come to the podium.
Gary Haskin, you also have another option, is take no action, because we've got strong arguments on both sides, and this should be left to the people when it comes up for a vote, which brings it back to the majority of the voters. You can easily take no action and let the people decide during the election on this initiative.
Point.
Thank you, didn't think of that. Huh.
That's not a bad way to go either. Anyone else?
I have a question. So would that have affected the taxes in Bellaterra that we got taxed, we were paying in 2022?
Are you referring to the fees for your landscaping and lighting?
Yeah.
That, you'd have to ask that gentleman right there.
Okay.
When was that?
In 2022, we were paying $287 a year. This year, it went up to $475.
But when was it passed? Is
It's been 18 years that have been 19 years.
with the increase, we have to figure out when the increase was authorized and approved, because then,
Last budget.
So,
21.
annually, every.
That would have been before this.
then it would have been before this, and this would not automatically make that void.
So who votes on that being erased that much at one time?
You can send some communications to your local representatives that are standing before you, or sitting before you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any
did
more
that.
comment? How about on the phones and computers? Anybody? Don't have it. Now, gentlemen.
That is a good question, what the lady brought up. If this thing does pass, we couldn't just sit up here and raise everybody's rates on Bellaterra for landscaping and lighting, right? It would have to go to.
Well, no, that's part of a pre-2022 agreement, so.
I understand that, but for instance, if it was for the next increase, right? No?
No,
Because it's already in place?
yes.
Okay, but for future things, it would mean more, we'd have to get a vote for any sort of increase.
The establishment of new landscape maintenance districts.
New, but not previous, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I would say we just look at what Gary just mentioned,
Let it die on the vine.
motion.
All right,
No
gentlemen.
action on
Do
it.
we need a motion for that?
No?
Nope.
Well, let's let this slide by itself. All right, let's move on to the last item, whatever it is. Next item. Okay, so we're at,
Taxpayers make that decision.
that's Donner. Resolution approving appointment of filling vacancies. Okay, number 9. Number 9, I've had discussion with the interim city manager, and I've expressed that I'd like to put this off a little bit longer. If there's no objections, I'd like to move beyond.
This is item number 9, right?
Item number 9.
Regarding filling the vacancies on the
Yes,
city
sir.
council?
That's
That
a
is
council
correct.
different, that's a different one.
I would like this to be discussed a little bit right now.
Well, I think we'd like to put it off this, anybody,
So
Well, you
just
asked
to
if there's any
clarify,
opposition.
Item number 9 is in regards to future filling of city council
oh, that's a
vacancies.
different one, I'm sorry.
Yeah, different one,
I'm sorry, I
item number
missed it.
9.
Number 9, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's number 10 I was referring to.
Yeah,
Okay,
so-
number 9, the process of, all right. Adopting resolution number 2022 approving an appointed process to fill vacancies of the city council where California Government Code Section 36512 authorize such appointments. Okay, staff.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
So in December of 2021, former Mayor Pro Tem Legero resigned from the city council, which opened a seat. In accordance with Government Code Section 36512, the city council voted to fill the vacancy by appointment instead of special election. The appointment is effective until the next general election pursuant to the Government Code. The remaining 2 years of Councilmember Legero's term will be placed on the ballot in the November 2022 general election. In the event the council chooses to fill by appointment, they must do so within 60 days from the commencement of the vacancy. The Government Code does not provide a process or procedure to fill the vacancy, which leaves the process of appointment at council's discretion. Numerous issues were brought up during the appointment to fill Councilmember Legero's seat, including the actual process, application, timeframe, transparency, etc. Previous appointments to fill vacancies had been made in open session without a dedicated process. In order to promote transparency and fair opportunity, council directed staff to draft an appointment process to fill vacancies on the city council where the Government Code authorizes such appointments. The draft appointment process is attached. And so what we've done is incorporated it into a resolution that would be adopted by the council. That way it is put into the city's records and able to be found in the future as the appointment process. And then at any time, if the council wished to amend it, we would adopt a new resolution. So the process that we have listed, if you go to Exhibit A, we have a purpose and intent, which the purpose and intent of this policy is to set forth a fair and open appointment process to be used by the city council to fill vacancies on the council where the Government Code authorizes such appointments. Appointment must be completed within 60 days from the commencement of the vacancy, and that's pursuant to the Government Code. And then regarding vacancy appointments, in the event of a city council vacancy, the city clerk will work with city staff to notify the public of the vacancy in accordance with the applicable best practices. At minimum, notice of the vacancy will be posted on the city website and at City Hall. The application period shall commence on a date established by the city clerk no later than 5 calendar days after the vacancy is declared in writing and end on the day following 21 calendar days after the commencement date. An individual desiring to fill a vacancy must submit an application during the application period. The city clerk will collect and provide all applications received within the application period to the mayor and each of the council members no later than 72 hours prior to the meeting scheduled for nominations or interviews. Such applications will be made available to the public at the same time. Applications received after the established application period shall not be accepted. The mayor and each council member shall independently review all forwarded qualified applications for the vacancy. And then we have an appointment process. The appointment process shall be as follows. 1, at a public meeting of the city council, the mayor and city council shall collectively set a date and time to hold an interview of all applicants who have submitted a qualified application during the specified application period. 2, at the meeting set for interviews, any member of the public shall be afforded the opportunity to speak to the item prior to commencement of the interview process. 3, the mayor and city council will then conduct interviews. 4, public comment will be solicited and allowed again after the interviews. 5, following the interviews and any public comment, the mayor and city council shall publicly deliberate and select one individual for each available position. The affirmative vote of at least 3 council members is required for appointment. And then in accordance with the California Government Code, I did attach that as a item B, which is how we get to whether to call for a special election or appointment. And so that is a process that we've drafted here in-house.
What were the timeframes again? You said 5 days to, once a vacancy is announced?
Once it's received in writing, the government code requires it to be submitted in writing. So once the city has received the resignation or the intent to open up a vacancy in writing, we would get it posted at minimum on the city's website and at City Hall within 5 days. And then it would be out for a period of 21 calendar days.
I don't like the, at a minimum, I think we would do the minimum. It would go on the city's website, which nobody probably really goes to. And what was the other thing? It's posted at City Hall in here?
Correct.
I think that we could do more to circulate the fact that there's an open seat for an elected position.
We typically advertise in the paper as well. That's under our best practices. If you want it written specifically into the appointment.
I would like it written.
Add it, yeah, let's add it in there.
How about paper and Facebook page?
Yeah, that's probably good.
Everywhere.
Okay. So in 21 days, we could publish it at least 2 times because we get into the newspaper weekly. Do we want it published weekly until the deadline?
Yes. And so they, 5 days to post all that stuff or start posting it. It runs for 21 days. And within that 21 days, applicants have to submit their application in writing. Do we say in writing?
We have an actual application that we
Okay.
use for commissions and councils. And so
Okay.
we would update that for specifically for city council and have that available to post on the website every time there's an
Do
opening.
they need to, like, when you run, have to get like 20 signatures and all that stuff?
No, that's.
Something
that's-
different?
No, this is
Okay.
just filling out the application, and then we encourage attachment of resumes and anything else that they want.
So after that 21 days, how long before an appointment is made?
So once that 21 days is up, we close the period, and then we schedule the public meeting with the council. And
On the
so
following meeting, obviously?
it would be a special meeting.
Special meeting?
Yeah, special
Okay.
meeting, and so we would set a date, council would set a date,
And then at that one meeting
is where you'd conduct your interviews and nominations.
and decide?
Correct, and hold interviews.
Okay, because I know there was another city, I looked it up, that they would hold 2 meetings. So the first one would be for people to come and make, talk, and then you would have another 2 weeks to look over the applications. I mean, say you got 10 applications on the day of the meeting because the word gets around town, and then, we're rifling through trying to figure the best one. I think that there should be a special meeting to go over them. And then I believe either another special meeting or at the next scheduled council meeting, it could be on the agenda. Give us a little more time.
The limit we have is 60 days from
Does
the
have to be
vacancy.
filled within 60 days.
I understand that.
Yeah, so
The 21 days leaves us 39 days. It should be plenty of time.
Well, that's assuming they post it the day after it goes. We have 5 days, so that cuts 5 more days off. If it takes them 3 to 5 days, depending on the calendar and what day they did it and when that gets posted, because you have 21 days after that, so that could be 26 days, 22 to 26 days.
Yeah, so Councilmember Cromick, what you're thinking of is that we have, an interview meeting, correct?
So within the 21 days, we would gather all the people that have written in and filled an application out. We would review those at the special meeting, right? Conduct interviews at that special meeting.
Okay, all right.
Then on the following one, give us time to disseminate some of that information and process it, and then appoint. I think it's going to be tough to go through all that on one meeting.
Right, and then appoint what, at a regular meeting, or?
Well, I said regular meeting because I'm trying not to make everybody come to a special meeting,
Right.
But I'm kind of open.
Well, the reason I think I like your idea about appointing at a regular meeting is this. let's call a spade a spade. The knock on this last process was that it looked like no matter what we did, it was a rigged process. And we were down to interviewing these people, and then our next option was actually talk about them. You know, well, I don't like so-and-so, and I don't like so right in front of their face. And and they were all really great candidates, and So then the only other option is you just, well, let's throw a name out. The problem, though, is that the way this is, and the way I think I'm really beginning to like your concept, is because I wanted to try to get away from the notion that this looked like a darn rigged process, okay? And so that, again, either you hash it out in front of everybody, right in front of them with the interviews, and then you turn around, and any name you throw out, as long as you got 3, what's going to be the concept? Well, then why are the rest of us here, And so I think that saying what you did, you had that interview meeting, okay, and then everybody, you hash it out. In the meantime, keep in mind, this is going to be an agendized item at the next meeting, which means, okay, if we're all serious about the Brown Act, we're not going to be talking about it, or we shouldn't be talking about it amongst ourselves, okay? So therefore, maybe that gives you at least some semblance of a legitimacy of at that point, when you nominate, somebody's going to nominate, hey, I nominate so-and-so, you're going to get 3 votes, then not, so I like your concept about the nominating meeting and then another 2 weeks and then appoint at a regular meeting.
Okay.
That's probably the least icky way to do this, which, as we've learned, there's no really good way to do this.
Yeah, and the assumption is that we will have decided, once somebody submits their resignation, we will decide to either do an appointment or have a special election. That must happen before any of this process happens.
That would be the first thing that would come to you. We'd get that notification, and then we would come to you and ask special election or appointment.
That's a whole nother beast, and I'm not sure that can be figured out beforehand.
So from the resignation, we have to have that meeting, whether it's a special appointment or an election.
Right, you have to make that determination.
You have to make that determination in a meeting. So depending on where we could be, if it's the end of the month, we could be out 2 weeks to start with that. I wasn't counting on that. Otherwise, we have no problem hitting 60 days all day long with that idea.
Nobody resigned going into December, okay? That was part of the problem, too, that long period. Nobody resigned then.
Well, what Peter's saying seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah.
I don't see any issue with
Obviously,
that.
we'll have to look at the calendar when it happens to try and figure out if we need to hold a special meeting to make that decision, to move it faster based on the timeline of the time of the year. If we're going dark on certain times, whatnot. So I think as long as we're all aware of that we may have to have a special meeting to make that quick decision, get the process rolling faster, then we have no problem hitting our 60 days. I'm okay with that.
It's flexible enough that it can make it work.
Yeah, I think we can.
So is it okay if we just send it back to staff with the modifications that Councilmember Crumick discussed?
We can do that too. So, as a consent of the council to have it back to staff to rewrite and bring it to the next meeting?
Yes.
Gentlemen, everybody?
Yes.
We're good with that.
Public comment.
Go ahead, public comment's coming right now. All right, public, here's your opportunity to weigh in on what we've been discussing. Give us your name, please.
Andy Dugo. Speaking from a little experience from the fire board, when you have a vacancy, try to avoid a special election unless you want to pay $3,000 to $5,000 for that election. And what we did is we posted at the firehouse, and we posted at the post office, and then ran it in the paper. And I don't think you're going to get 10 people to apply, but the idea of being able to review with the board and then not in front of review the written process and what you're talking about works out very fine. We've done that. We did that several times, so. But avoid a special election at all costs.
Yeah, that's what we try to do.
Yeah.
I
don't think that'll be a problem.
I think the more transparent you can be, going through the process myself, obviously, more transparent we can be with the public, the better, so that they can get the best candidate and, you win on merit.
Absolutely.
Hi, Sherry again. I think we had 7 or 8 different candidates throwing their hats this time, so you might get 10.
Yeah.
I also like the idea of Escalon residents, because even if not everyone is on Escalon residents, they tell their neighbors who are also on, and I think, it moves like wildfire.
Yep.
You can put in the water bill. Everybody gets the water bill too.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of ways we can do it, and I think the consensus is we're looking to get as much transparency as possible. And I think if we keep that in mind, we'll be
Try to
fine.
do as many, I mean, it just depends on timing for the water bill.
Water bill is not gonna reach
Yeah, it might
everybody
make it,
because
it
of
might
Well,
not.
it depends again, you
action
know.
for everybody, but
But
yeah.
any venue that we have access to that's convenient at the time, we should try to explore it, to give everyone the sense of transparency, so we can have a clean slate, and no one's got any preconceived ideas that we didn't do what we could to get it fair and square. All right.
So will those changes be back at the next meeting?
Yes,
And then we'll vote on it?
correct. So the
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
That's okay. Your name, please?
Yeah, Cody Fowler, 1550
Cody.
Judith. Is it, would it be too much to just have a one-page mailer sent out to everybody? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I don't do Facebook. My wife does Facebook. There's all kinds of nasty stuff they put on there. It's completely, it's a waste of time. And I sure don't come in here to see the memo on the wall and whatever the other thing was about it. But I think just maybe a mailer put out. I mean, we should be able to do that within a couple days.
You get the paper.
No. Jesus, no, I'm not paying $1.50 for that.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, that's, maybe just throw a mailer out. I mean, you're not gonna, you'd have to, you'd lose time going around through the water bill and stuff. Why not just have city staff just mail something out the next day?
I don't have a problem with that.
Well, I don't
I
know.
struggle with how much that's gonna cost us for what we're gonna get out of that if we have all the other avenues of notification.
If we did a mailer, we'd probably do the postcards, so they're a little,
There you go.
pick a color.
Doesn't have to be
Postcard
fancy,
costs a
just
little less.
something,
Yeah.
an extra way for people that don't come down here and read the wall or, you know, do
I think
Facebook.
it's like $1,000.
I would hope honestly that folks that are interested in running for city council are here on a regular basis or watching online or involved with reading agendas. So I would think they'd have ample opportunity to hear that, but it's not my choice necessarily to send a mailer, but.
I
No,
can't
it's
argue
another-
with that.
it's another idea.
I'm just out here to throw a different
Hey,
idea. That was it.
That's what,
So,
I'm
Not a
glad
bad
you came.
idea.
Thank you for giving us
That's
a
all I
good
have.
idea.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, anyone else? Anybody on the internet or phones?
So are we doing a mailer or not?
Well,
I'm sure we've sent mailers
let me-
before.
you want
Can
me
you,
to
can you
put
get the number on how much it would cost to do the mailer?
Yeah, I could get the
come back
cost.
to us with that. And
Okay,
then,
and I'll add it in there, and then depending on costs or however you guys look at it, we can review it again, and then if you want to take it out, we can.
okay.
Sure.
It's not a bad idea because I don't get the newspaper, I'm not on Facebook, and I get a paperless water bill. So I think a mailer might reach me more effectively also.
Okay. I might ask for more than 5 days. I might ask for 7, just to give us a couple more days, just in case it's.
So now you got 4.
Take the time you need.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and.
So we
put
have
changes
a
into this.
consensus. It'll go back to you and you'll come back to us when you're ready.
Okay, I'll bring it to you in the next meeting.
Very good. All right, that moves us down to the last item, number 10, which I'm hoping that we can just put off for a while here until we get some things squared away.
Well, that was put off last meeting.
That's correct, it was.
So how long are we going to put this off?
Oh, until I think we have a consensus that's ready to deal with doing the appointing.
Okay, but where are we at on the process? I mean, should
Well,
we discuss it or?
Well, we're in the process of negotiating, and there's some extenuating circumstances that we're working on to clear up.
I know Councilman Swift, had asked about it last time too. You have any questions?
Yeah, I think it ties into a closed session issue tonight, too.
Oh, right, yeah.
So that's why,
If I can assist with the process on when there's an objection to something being removed from the calendar, the council can, actually technically to remove it from the calendar when there's an objection, I believe it needs a 2/3 vote to have it removed from the calendar. But,
Okay.
I leave.
Let's have a vote.
we can do that.
All right?
Yeah,
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, I move to remove item 10 from the administrative matters calendar for this evening.
Very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, so we have a 4 and 1 abstention. So we'll move down to council communications, Councilman Crummage.
You sure you want me to go first? Okay.
Why not?
Okay, I got I got some papers tonight. I got a few things I'd like to talk about. The first one, it's an easy one. I think we should drop the COVID restrictions on the agenda. I think those are superfluous at this point, and I would like to see those removed from the packet and not encourage people to attend online or wear masks or social distance, and we can just remove that paragraph altogether. I don't know, does anybody else support that idea?
Yeah, I would.
Where are we at legally on that?
I'm trying to see where he's referencing.
I mean, I don't mind doing the same thing. I just want to make sure we're, legal.
I think the state itself is what, the 18th,
Yeah,
when California is done with this?
the 11th and.
The 11th? Is it the 11th?
The 11th.
Okay, well,
I thought it
that's,
was the 13th, but
Friday.
okay, we got 3 different, 11 to, okay. Does anybody know the actual
it's
date?
it's Friday, and whatever Friday is, sorry.
Now, the agenda, I'm sorry, council members, the agenda references social distancing and mask, which is no longer required, so you could drop that information if you wanted to.
Does anybody support that idea?
I do.
Yeah, I would concur with that too.
Drop the COVID restrictions, yeah.
So
Okay.
that change be made on the next agenda?
Yes.
Okay, that's my first thing. Next one is some comments on the Irwin Village situation. Understand the frustration on, where did it come from and how come nobody knew? I completely understand that, and I feel for those comments. I think it's a tremendous win for the community that showed up in force and spoke out and said, we don't want this kind of housing in our community. And I'm thrilled. I'm really honestly thrilled. I thought for sure that it was going to be rammed through and there was nothing we could do up here. And I felt helpless. I didn't know what we could do. And when I heard that, they pulled out because frankly, they didn't want to be in a town where they're not welcome. This kind of, story, I understand. And it's nothing against, in my opinion, this is nothing against low-income senior housing. What this is I'm not in favor, frankly, of subsidized housing where the government's going to pay somebody's rent for them. That's where I start. The other one is, I love it how the community can come out in force and kind of dictate what happens in a town. It's a wonderful thing because it doesn't often happen, and they get, left by the wayside. So, great job, Escalon, on that project. We talked about the Taxpayer Protection and Government Accountability Act. I think we need to. I think we made the right decision on that. So, obviously, in this town, we've got a thriving, tremendous recreation program. I feel like the rec program is not where it could be. I feel like we need better facilities. We need more people. We need more money. All of these things that are on my wish list that I know we don't have, and we're not really sure how to get that. But this ties into another thing that's going to come up, and I want everybody to remember this. We've talked about senior housing in this town before. I have brought up numerous times that we have a beautiful piece of land in between the community center and the golf course, which would be a wonderful place for development. Right now, it's earmarked to be expand the community center and Hogan Field. I say, why can't we do both? Why can't we put that piece of property up again, find a developer, come in, make a deal, have them build senior housing for that lost middle that Ann Shaddix brings up, that middle, not the low income, not subsidized, the people that in this town want to downsize and stay in this community. We have a great opportunity there. With those funds, if you find a developer, you can ask them, hey, expand our park, build us some new baseball fields, build us a soccer field. It's part of the deal. We have an opportunity. We got to stop letting it go. We've got it there. Everybody wants it. We've got to find a way to make it happen. I've brought it up numerous times. It's just a matter of going back out, marketing it the right way, and making a deal happen. Also, I think that Mr. Dugo brought up a good point as far as the scope. When a new housing project comes in or any development, we do that 300 feet. Nobody likes that idea. I don't know if that must be a state minimum, right?
I don't know if it's state minimum, it's just in the municipal code that way.
Do we as a city have the ability to expand on that scope?
Yes.
I think we need to look at that. I don't know if we should send a mailer to everybody in town, but it seems like there is a great deal of a desire to have that scope expanded. So can I at least ask for some support tonight to get it on an agenda to discuss it at a later meeting, the scope, the radius where we send out notifications?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
We're going to have that discussion, and we're also going to be talking more about ordinance adjustments. We're going to make some adjustments on the ordinances.
Sure.
Based on what we've just experienced.
Okay,
That'll be included.
So we got it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I wanted to, believe me, that was me rushing through here. I have one other thing I want to bring up. I know it's getting a little bit late, but I wanted to bring this up. So, thank you, Mary. I wrote a little thing out here. Thank you, Mary Alves. Tonight, I would like to bring before the community and the council for support to put it on a future agenda for discussion, an idea that during my time on the dais has not yet been brought up. I'm referring to the idea of considering transitioning the city of Escalon from a general law city to a charter city. General law city to a charter city. I have some supporting documents which I will now distribute to the rest of the council. So there's 4 copies of that. You want to pass that down? 4 copies of that. It's just a couple pages out of some documents that I received from city manager. I inquired about this. I was curious about it. Nobody talks about it. I was wondering, is this the only form of government we have, the one we currently have, or is there another way? So, I would like to briefly read from these supporting documents why I feel this concept should be considered for discussion on the agenda and why it provides one of the best tools we can acquire to fight back against the state's stranglehold on our community. And tonight, talking about, SB 1383 is a great example. They held a gun to our head on that one. And so this is something I think we should consider. I've got a few excerpts to read here. This one is from the California League of Cities. In 2001, the Institute for Local Government, the League's research arm, teamed up with the Hastings Public Law Research Institute to create an informal research for those interested in understanding more about this special form of local control, which is charter cities. Charter cities versus general law cities, the basics. The California Constitution gives the cities the power to become charter cities. The benefit of becoming a charter city is that the charter cities have supreme authority over municipal affairs. In other words, a charter city's law concerning a municipal affair will trump a state law governing the same topic. Cities that have not adopted a charter are general law cities. That's what we currently are. General law cities are bound by the state's general law, even with respect to municipal affairs. Of the California's 478 cities, 108 of them are charter cities. So some of them have figured it out. The charter city provision in the state constitution, commonly referred to as the home rule provision, is based on the principle that a city, rather than a state, is in the best position to know what it needs and how to satisfy those needs. The home rule provision allows charter cities to conduct their own business and control their own affairs. A charter maximizes local control. A city charter, in effect, is the city's constitution, need not set out every municipal affair the city would like to govern, so long as the charter contains a declaration that the city intends to avail itself of the full power provided by the California Constitution. Any city ordinance that regulates a municipal affair will govern over a general law of state. The concept of municipal affairs is fluid and may change over time. Issues that are municipal affairs today become areas of statewide concern in the future. Nonetheless, there are some areas that the courts have consistently, this is important, the courts have consistently classified as municipal affairs. These include municipal election matters, land use and zoning decisions, how a city spends its tax dollars, municipal contracts. This is one that Mayor Ed Alves has brought up numerous times. It's a brilliant idea. Why is the city of Escalon subject to prevailing wage? Because it stifles what we can do. Listen to this. Municipal contracts, provided the charter or the city ordinance exempts the city from the public contract code and the subject matter of the bid constitutes a municipal affair, thus a charter may exempt a city from the state's competitive bidding statutes. That's huge. All right, last thing on this document. How do you become a charter city? There's 2 ways. The city's voters elect a charter commission. The commission has the responsibility of drafting and debating the charter. Or the other way, the governing board of the city, that's us, on its own motion, drafts the charter. In either case, the charter is not adopted by the city until it is ratified by a majority of the vote of the city voters. Okay, so that's the first page. I'm rolling. I just got one more thing here. This is from a document I was also given by the Institute for Local Government, Local Agency Powers and Limitations. All right. Under California Constitution, certain kinds of cities have an additional measure of protection from state preemption. Charter cities have an extra measure of authority over municipal affairs. If a matter is a municipal affair and not a matter of statewide concern, a charter city has power to act, even to the extent that the city's actions may be at odds with the state law. The chief restriction on local action under these circumstances is whether the action would be inconsistent with the city's charter or the state and federal constitutions. In a charter city, the residents adopt a charter. The charter functions as a local constitution. We went over that. The courts, here's another thing. The courts, rather than the legislature, are the ultimate deciders on whether a subject is a municipal affair or a matter of statewide concern. This determination is made on a case-by-case basis, which means that it frequently takes litigation to determine the scope of a charter city's exercise of authority. So, that's a lot of good stuff. I hope we all took it in. I think this is a very serious matter. It's a great tool that we haven't yet looked at. So, in closing, I believe transitioning Escalon from a general law city to a charter city would greatly enhance our local control and our ability to represent the great people of Escalon. I would now ask for a council member to support this idea and direct staff to put this discussion topic on a future agenda. Do I have any support for this idea?
Yeah, I want to read a little bit more about it, but it sounds good.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the idea, looking into it. Let's find out more about it, because every side's got two sides. Let's see the flip side and the good side.
Well, can we get it on an agenda to talk about?
You need two people, you got two. You have Councilman.
Well, yeah, but when we talk about it, what are we going to have? Because I'm going to say in the meantime, all five of us probably need to do a little bit of our homework, do a
I think we should.
Googling,
So
okay?
you want to put it off?
To see what we know what we're talking about, you know?
Okay, so do you want to, hold back until the next meeting?
Can you hold that thought until the next meeting? And then maybe after that, we'll put it on the agenda. 'Cause I like this concept too. This might solve a lot of our problems, but I want to make sure before we spend staff time on it, talking back and forth.
All right, don't let me forget.
I'm not going to let you forget.
Next meeting, I'm going to bring it up.
Okay, very good. Are you done now?
I'm done.
Okay, let's go to,
Mr. Mayor, an option might be a workshop. Really interesting concept there, but a workshop would involve more people and more information on a more casual basis as opposed to
I second that.
Do we have somebody like League California City? Is there somebody from there?
Yeah.
That would.
What I was going to suggest is the next time Councilmember Crummage brings it up and gets his support to put it on the agenda, for that agenda, we'll find somebody to give a presentation. I think just starting with a presentation, maybe from the league or somebody from my office, would be the best way to start the whole process and thought process. And then after that, the council would at least have a better understanding of what this is really all about and the issues and the concerns. And then you can do as much community outreach as possible, because you're talking about the structure of the city, which is going to be costly and time consuming. But yes, we can have a presentation done to start the ball rolling.
okay, so as I understand it, we're going to do a little research on our own, come back in the next meeting. If it goes on the agenda, then we'll hook up with the League of Cities and have somebody speak to us regarding that. And then from there, we can either have committees or whatever we desire, but we'll be well informed. Is that kind of it?
That was my thought.
Yeah, don't forget Councilmember Crummage, okay?
Got it in my-
Let's say the rest of us, we'll do our homework.
Get a little more informed so we
Yeah.
can decide if we want to be a second to that motion.
Is there any
More
objection,
informed.
to the idea we're going to go through and wait next week and all that? We're good with that, everybody? Anybody object? No? Okay, good. All right, now let's go to Councilman Bellinger and see what he's got.
Not a whole lot, a lot of good topics tonight. Lots of discussion. I don't really have much to add to that, honestly. I'm good with everything that happened tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Hagan.
I'd just like to see the city, maybe like we were discussing prior with the rec commission, start working a little bit closer with our schools so that we can potentially get the community kind of clicking with competition a little bit more. Also, what Peter was talking about as far as the senior housing, got to really put that on, you know, the front of topics that need to be dealt with as soon as we can. So any kind of ideas that come from the community that would support our seniors, which that Irwin project, you know, took local control away. And so that's one of the bigger problems you see, on top of the fact that most likely we wouldn't have any of our seniors would have lived there. And so that's the two issues that I saw with that. Other than that, I think it was a good meeting tonight. I'm good.
All right, thank you, Councilman Hagan. Pro Tem Swift.
Yeah, there's something I need to say, and it's, in my opinion, it's to set a couple of records straight, because this meeting, the last meeting, a lot of people bring this up, brought it up. Andy, you brought it up just as one of many, and that is basically with this situation, who knew what, and what did they know, and when did they know it? You know, with this Irwin Village thing, I think one of the big things is broadsided. Right. When was this first brought up? I remember when this was first brought up at one of the the meetings where we were talking about senior housing. I think we had two of them last year, back in May. I remember, I can't remember if it was Tammy, or it had to be Tammy, because it was on this side, you know, mentioning, okay, by the way, there is going to be another development going into town. They're taking advantage of the state program where they basically fast track it, and it's going to be over there where the old auction yards used to be. Okay. And we're like, everybody, okay. Over our heads, okay. And so that, you know, morphed over time, you know, and of course, you know, then I think it was by November, I know that you had actually mentioned it, that they had actually were beginning to take out paperwork. And I remember at a senior fund bunch meeting, we were talking about the fate of senior housing in town. And that was one of the things that I had mentioned to the crowd, that, oh, by the way, there is another development. It's over by, you know, where the old auction yard is going to be. That's a state. That's a development put in by the developer, but they're going to be in conjunction with HUD, and it's going to be affordable housing, affordable senior housing. We've learned so much since then, okay? So, because now we know what affordable means, okay? Because now affordable often equals subsidized, and now that people associate that with now Section 8, okay? So, in terms of so that was at the November meeting, okay, that I remember you discussing that, okay, yeah, they filed the paperwork and it's began to go down the road. And I remember the discussion up here about, okay, well, the staff, is there any way that we can try to get them to lean towards, you know, giving us some of the things that we may want out of it, you know, preferential treatment for Escalon citizens, that kind of stuff. And staff said, okay, well, we work on it. But again, everybody's like, okay, no problem. You know, I don't know if something just didn't click or what, you know, but, and so that's, I think, what largely happened with everybody involved. Then staff puts out the 300-foot notice. Was it 30 days or 60 days or something like that?
It's 10 days in advance.
10 days, yeah.
10 days in the newspaper.
Yeah.
15 days mailer, 10 days.
And the way that I'm seeing this, as per our ordinance, okay, which, by the way, a former council had to have passed, that gave them the direction as to, here's what you guys do. You know, you don't worry about putting out a sign. Don't worry about putting out, you know, 90 days in advance or anything like that. Just do this, okay? And then I think that you also have the situation where basically, remember, they file their paperwork in November, you start putting that stuff out. We have a month and a half where there's no council meetings, no nothing, okay? So, in my estimation, this is how this played out. Basically, a whole bunch of, well, we think we're okay. Well, what does affordable mean? I think we're probably okay with that. Staff's doing what they're supposed to be doing. Nobody's even thinking, hey, wait, this might be a humongous red flag. Then any notion of affordable, therefore subsidized, therefore Section 8, okay? Now everybody knows a little bit more about it, okay? Now everybody, also, by the way, even the public, can and should also pay more attention to this kind of stuff. We all should, okay? We dodged a bullet, which is why I can't support what Councilmember Crumick, I cannot support it more, Councilmember Crumick. Let's look at modifying that, or you stole my thunder, by the way.
All right.
Let's look at that, let's look at that, revising that ordinance, okay? So instead of staff passing it out to 300 feet, seems like there are 3 or 4 issues, by the way, that the uphill had issue with. 300 feet, what's 300 feet, okay? You know, do we want to go the whole town? Do we want to go, I think somebody said last meeting, 2,500 feet. Mr. Farrell, I think you said that. Not a bad idea, okay? Not a bad idea at all. 10 days. Should it be 60? Should it be 90 days? Bring those signs back, okay? All of those things I think we need to get codified back in. There's been debate, were they there, when they leave? I don't know when they left. All I know is we got to put them back in so that we've got enough lead time. You guys have enough lead time to go, wait, what is this project about? Okay, and then start seeing if we got some red flags. This SB 35, which was a Senate bill that gave the state the ability to fast track these developments, it is designed to stop NIMBYs. That's exactly how it was designed. So, but like I say, I think that as a start, I can't support you more. I think it's a great idea, Councilmember Crumick. Yeah, let's take a look and see what we can do about, in the name of transparency, you know, and again, it seemed to be centered on the signage, the feet requirement, how many feet out, you know, posting, how many days we post out, maybe 90 days is a good idea. Hey, maybe that thing's posted everywhere, including Escalon's residence page, everywhere, okay? Just in the name of transparency. So those are just my thoughts, and those are my recollections too of how this thing played out.
Okay?
That's it.
Okay, Councilman Hagan would like to add one more thing.
Just to add to what you had said, bringing back the sign actually on the property, that whenever that ordinance was, you know, kicked out, I don't know when that was.
I don't know, yeah.
That way it's real visible for people driving by it.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
that's it.
That's it? Okay, my turn if there's anything left to talk about. You guys ate up everything, but I'm still gonna review it. All right, let's go to Irwin. Irwin, we had a meeting a couple years ago, a year and a half ago, with the two principals, or actually the principal of the company that wanted to do that project out there. And in that meeting, I met with him, Robert met with him, Councilman Swift, and 2 of our city employees. And the conversation was going really well until we got to the point where he mentioned it was gonna be a Section 8. And now, let's get it straight. I don't have a problem with Section 8 as long as it's our Section 8 people in Escalon. Because there are people in this town that are Section 8. And I have no opposition to them being housed in that condition at all. But my biggest opposition to that whole mess was we had 0 say in it almost, and it was take it, too bad, that's the way it is. That don't fly with me. I don't like it. This council didn't like it. It's not the way we should operate. And how we got there is another story. But we're working on the answer to that, and we'll get back to you on the final on those answers, because we really don't have the solid answers. I'll tell you this much, traffic hadn't been addressed, and we were arguing about the EIR and the traffic issue. How could you put 48 units in there and not have a traffic light? You realize what that traffic is like now? Throw 48 homes on there and see what it's like. We talked and danced around the soil issue. That was an issue. We have a plume underneath that ground that probably is contaminating the well. We never really addressed that either. But I think we all have to understand something. Affordable housing is not a bad thing, or Section 8 done properly. And I think properly means that we have input. When we're locked out of that input, then we have issues. That's what the issues were. It was not against Section 8 housing as much as the fact that they told us we had 0 say. That don't cut it. It was a horrible, horrible experience, and I'm going to do everything in my ability while I'm still in this council to make sure it doesn't happen again. And one of the things we're going to look into is the ordinances. Now, we've talked about a couple of them. One was the sign ordinance that used to exist. God only knows where that went. We also have to notify people on a larger scale. This is a small town. We can put it on the internet, we can do a lot of things. But it needs to be notified. Transparency here is the issue. We need to make sure people know what can and is happening in our communities, because input from the community is very valuable to us. We talked about all that housing. We're working now, we being a couple of us, are working on housing concept for the seniors. It's not an easy project, but we've got some ideas we're gonna be coming out with. I hope we can get this done. Councilman Hagan and I have met with another lady, and we've enlisted a draft person to draw a rendering to give us a concept to start with, because I'm a builder, a developer, I've done these things, and I'm telling you, the way you start these things, you have to have a concept. So we're gonna get the concept. The concept will be reviewed. If it's acceptable, we'll move on. Then once from the concept, you grow into a working set of plans. Once you get a working set of plans, and everybody agrees on that, boom, we need the soil. Now we find the soil, we get the soil under condition. We find a developer that's willing to work with us in our situation and our terms. Our terms are gonna be, we're gonna give land at a reasonable cost. We're gonna somehow help them through the public. We also talked about fundraising for materials to offset the burden for the developer. And the idea was to somehow get this thing done for the community. But it's not easy. It's a very complicated situation, takes a lot of time. I know people get frustrated, but how do you think we feel? I'm frustrated. I mean, I'd like to have it done already. As far as the charter city is concerned, the jury's out on that one. We'll see after more review, maybe that is the best way to go. I don't know. I know that in a charter city, you have a strong mayor. I know in a charter city, you have limitations, but you also have some leeway. So we're gonna have to weigh all that and come back to this and see if that's really what we wanna do. And that's really about all I got to say, other than, see, the 17th is the corned beef and cabbage at the community center. If you guys can make that, that would be great for the community. And now we're gonna go off to a closed session. Thank you all for coming.
Wait, Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
Just to open it up for public comment for the closed session.
really?
Yep.
All right, here's your chance. Come on down.
I want to thank you guys. You listened. You didn't have to respond to anybody in a public session. I want to thank you guys for listening.
We're here for.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming down.
It also taught me I better be more involved in this.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Just a little thing for the senior housing. Behind us on California, isn't Flourishing supposed to be coming?
Flourishing.
Yeah. Maybe you could put a little thing in there, since that's not into the city yet, a little something to tempt them to do that project until that project's ready.
It's something to consider.
You know?
Sure.
Might be able to say, you're already going in here anyway.
Sure.
So, you know, until you could do this, maybe we could tempt them over here a little bit to fill their time.
Anything we can do to get it would be
Just a
great.
thought.
Well, it's appreciated.
Thank you.
Good one.
That's good thought.
How many of you gentlemen have rental property you rented to Section 8? Raise your hand, please. I used to have quite a bit of property at one time. I've sold it all about 23 years ago. I'm 89 years old. And I've had some really, really dandies. Subleasing, where you rent to a young lady that's trying to get established, and you don't know, but she subleases half the house to somebody else. So you evict, because she's not, the lady that rented is not make the payments. So 30 days later, you go to court, the judge says, okay, you got 15 days to get out. And then the other girl says, I'm subleasing. Well, now you got 90 days. I mean, 90 days, they can do a lot of damage, believe me. I mean, they forget it.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, it certainly seems like you guys have learned from the process. You guys all want to get more involved in trying to do better notification. I applaud you all for that. That's good. I had something else on my brain, and now I don't remember.
If it helps you, this is public comment for item number 11, which is going to be going into closed session regarding concerning employment of this interim city manager. You have anything on that? That would be proper at this
You know,
time.
I would certainly wonder why we keep putting item 10 off. I I mean, this is the second council meeting in a row that we keep putting off public comment, but yet we're going to go into a closed session and consider the same title, or the same topic, yes?
Correct.
Why is that?
Well, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier in the evening, that there's a lot of things you don't know that we do know, that we need to work out. And once we work those out, we'll let you know. I mean, you can't expect to know what we know because you don't deal with all this and all this stuff we have.
Sure.
So give us an opportunity to resolve what we're doing. That's all I'm saying.
Did you guys solicit applications for this in the outside world, or no?
I don't believe we have.
Why wouldn't you?
Our understanding our process does not require that.
The council previously chose to go with looking in-house versus advertising first.
It's a valid explanation, and I would certainly look at that. So, all right, I was just asking. That was it. I just happened to notice that. Second time in a row we've put that off. So, you know, if there's a reason, great. Just wondering. So, carry on. Like I said, thank you guys for recognizing everything that we've done here in the last, few weeks with the Irwin project. And obviously, there's work to be done, and I think you guys see that. So maybe I'll leave you guys alone for a little while. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? Anyone online? Any phone calls? Okay, we're gonna move to a closed session. Thank you all for coming down tonight.